There's also forms to fill out to order an address sign that is CAL FIRE approved. So if it's smoky and dark and basically yucky, you're much more likely to be found. So if you don't have one of our address signs, please order these signs. And that's all I have as far as introductions. And what we're going to do now is go through each of our 3 working teams, which are communications, emergency prep, and planning and funding, and have each of those teams give a report. So Keith, did you have anything else as far as introductions for tonight before we start the communications report?
Yeah, I see that Supervisor Haschek has joined us as well. So welcome, John. And do you have a time constraint this evening, John?
Yep. Hi, everyone.
Why don't we just jump right into all your stuff? I mean, we basically have the sort of same thing we've been doing over and over again, and we'd love to hear your updates on emergency access routes. I can just jump down to that page.
Great.
Okay, well, you know, Keith is an incredible asset for Sherwood Firewise, and so we're working on, you know, right now trying to get some clarification on Ridge Road and seeing what we can do about that. We're trying to connect with Lake County to see how they're doing these zones of benefit. And so hopefully we're making progress there too. And I hope that things are going well with the vegetation management. You know, we certainly had a setback with the COVID-19 cases in Leggett and Laytonville, CAL FIRE, and those being closed down for a few days. And so luckily we had that incident on Condor, which got taken care of quickly. And I think that, you know, we're gonna have Sheriff Kendall at one of the Sherwood Firewise Council meetings. And I think that we need to clear up some of the protocol issues. So as far as, you know, how the notifications get sent out. So that's really, you know, just a lot of COVID issues going on right now, and trying to make sure we're fire safe. So if there's any questions, I'm certainly here.
Thank you. Yeah, why don't we go ahead and since we have Supervisor Haschek here and he has to leave at 6:30, does anybody have any questions for him? And again, we're looking for questions, not rants, please.
This is Doreen, and I have a question, John, and certainly appreciation for you being here tonight. And my question concerns staffing for fire emergencies. And I wonder if you know anything about a possible shortage with CAL FIRE personnel. I've been reading something about that. So do you have any comments on that or knowledge about the level of staffing that we have this fire season?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because they sent all the people home from Leggett and Laytonville, and so they shut those stations down for a few days. You know, I heard 72 hours, I heard 96, until they could get it taken care of. And so, interestingly enough, CAL FIRE didn't really have a protocol for how they were going to deal with these kind of situations. And so hopefully that will be taken care of. And so that's all I know about that, the situation.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Anybody else like to ask a question of Supervisor Haschek? Don't be shy.
So yesterday we did put make it an infraction to not be wearing a mask in a public setting where you're closer than 6 feet to someone. Or if you're indoors, you need to wear a mask, and if you're outdoors and can't be more than 6 feet away, then you have to wear a mask. So we did make that an infraction. And, you know, because certainly over on the coast, we're hearing just all the people who come for their vacations aren't really being aware of safety like we would like. And people are really concerned about that. So it was $100 for the first infraction. That's if you're defiant and not wearing a mask. And then $200 for the second infraction and $500 for the third. So hopefully we can get a control of it, because it sounds like in Fort Bragg and Mendocino, there's just hundreds of people walking around, and a lot of them not wearing masks. Summertime on the coast.
Mm-hmm. You know, John, one of the things that you and I have discussed, and it's going to be with the sheriff coming in next month, I haven't seen the updates to that vulnerability assessment and the updated evacuation plans, and how not only the fire responders are going to deal with COVID, but also what are we as individuals, what are the new protocols for evacuation for residential? You know, it's going to change the whole scene. And I know that the answer, it probably is, we're working on it. But who can we work with to make our community more prepared for if we have to evacuate in the next week or 2 or 3 for some reason, and where are we going to go? And is there going to be social distancing, and how can we prepare for that?
You know, certainly the sheriff and the Office of Emergency Services is working on that. I'm going to be talking to the sheriff tomorrow morning, so I'll bring that up as a public safety issue and get back to you on that. You know, with the fire vulnerability assessment, that, you know, we gave our input, the Sherwood Firewise Council did, and I did, and you know, all I got back from that was that they were going to incorporate those ideas into their final draft. So.
Yeah, we're going to be covering tonight. We're doing evacuation prep, and so the CAL FIRE site, we're going to look at their Ready, Set, Go, and they have added a few items to go bags and things too. We already had smoke masks in there, but now it's, you know, facial masks for COVID as well, and multiple masks, figuring that you might be gone for days and have to change them out. So, you know, those, you know, hand sanitizer, things like that seem obvious, but we need to change as quickly as possible, change our evacuation preparation, because it can happen at any moment. Anybody else have a question for Supervisor Haschek? He's still got a few minutes with us.
All right, well, okay. Thank you all for being here and, you know, attending these important meetings. And thank you, you know, it's a really incredible work that you all have done for the community. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, we appreciate it too. I want to
appreciate it, even though they don't know it.
Well, I want to, while you're on the phone, something that we're doing on the community's, the county service area funding. And I'm sorry for everybody, we're jumping around a little bit, but we're working on trying to set up a funding mechanism for the emergency access routes. And we've been meeting with the county council on some Zoom meetings with the law firm Chronic that's helping us with that, and certainly Supervisor Haschek. He's introduced us to Lake County supervisors so we can get some information from them, because they have been doing county service area development with roads and things. So they have a good idea of how the process of county staff has to go through to set these zones up. So we're making good progress on that. We're hoping this year that we can actually have all of these emergency access routes that we've been working on secured, and have an evaluation in place. I'll talk about it in a minute. We've got some funding. Some of them will be cleared this year with some funding we've already secured, but we need long-term funding to keep them open, and that's that county service area. So John, thank you so much for keeping that going too, because in the middle of all this pandemic, he has managed to keep county council, and county council's interested too. I'm really pleased that he knows this is important. So even though we're in the middle of this other crisis, fire season is not going to wait for a virus. So he recognizes that. So thanks, John, for that.
Well, I want to recognize, I see Hal Wagonette on the line, and his daughter, Holly Wagonette, who is a student of mine, is part of that law firm, and she's really spearheading the pro bono work that they're doing for us. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, she's been doing a great job. Okay, well, I'm going to move on down to the communications team. Doreen and John, please hang in if you can, but if you need to go, we understand. I know you've got another meeting coming up. So, and if anybody has any questions, please jump in too. Doreen already mentioned the screen that's on here, the communication team, sherwoodfirewise.org is the website. We also have our Facebook page. Those are always good to sort of keep update on what we're doing. And we're working on loading these recordings for our sessions up to the YouTube channel. And it's a chore. We're all learning how to do that too. But the idea is that we'll have these meetings every month, and if somebody misses one, they can go back to it, you know, and send it on to somebody else, have somebody else watch it. Safety net is very important. And again, I see names on here I don't think are registered yet with our safety net program. Basically, we monitor the local scanner channels, and we send out a notice through text and phone and email to the subscribers that give you that notice that there's an incident in the area, usually upon the dispatch. So a structure fire, vegetation fire, something like that, that's sent out. And that helped just recently. John mentioned the Condor incident. That was in our neighborhood, and it happened quickly. Quite a few people were calling each other. It was a really good local networking of our people communicating. The fire department was right on it, and we sent out a safety net notification to the community about that incident. And that was within 10 minutes of the chief showing up on site, confirming that it was a fully involved structure and cars and into the vegetation. So these are the kinds of things that we're set up to do, and we need help doing those things. But if you haven't signed up for the safety net, right now it's free, and we don't know if we're ever going to charge anything for it, but we probably should. But you can download the form off of the Sherwood Firewise page that you see there. You just go to the website and you can find the link. I also wanted to mention that we always stress that you need to sign up with the sheriff. This is the #1 notification system. You know, the sheriff, both the Nixle system, which is the texting the 95490 to 888-777, and that will send a text to your phone. If you go to the sheriff's website, you can also sign up for a much more detailed, and it's called Everbridge, but the idea is they can actually pick a neighborhood, a grouping of houses, draw a square around an area, and notify those areas. And we're seeing that that's the unified command structure that's being pushed across the state, that everybody's moving in that direction. And I heard the sheriff say that the other night on the town hall meeting with the senator, that everybody's looking at getting more specific and using these systems more often. And we've certainly been encouraging that. The Nixle system, just so you know, is that it sends a text message to the entire 95490 area code, zip code. That's a big area to notify the whole community of something. And so there's a hesitancy to use it because of that. And that's a free service, and it's just sort of broad. There's also Everbridge, which is a different technology that can focus in on that single house, group of houses, subdivision, you know, polygon. It's very smart in what you can do with it. And so the other day, there was an evacuation warning, and we'll talk about evacuation methods here in a minute. But there's basically an evacuation warning, and there's an evacuation order. Those are the two terms now that are being used, and we'll talk about in a minute. But during that incident the other day, which went on for about a half an hour, the sheriff did issue an evacuation warning, but only put it on the Facebook page. It did not get out on either Nixle or Everbridge. And so that's something, like John was saying, that's the protocols that we need to investigate a little bit and try to figure out, you know, should that be able to happen? Because if you're going to send an evacuation warning out, it should definitely be getting out in as many ways as possible, and especially to the community that's being noticed that they have to evacuate, or they may have to evacuate. That was news to us. So just for news to us is tune into the Facebook pages. Mendocino Voice has a good one. There's quite a few others. Our Firewise, Sherwood Firewise Facebook, Nancy keeps that linked up with other Facebook pages, other social media. And news does get around through the Facebook social media, but we have to be very careful because there's also lots of other opinions and other kinds of statements. And so it's not really what I would call a formal communication channel for emergencies, like the Nixle system or like the Everbridge system or like the safety net system. where they're just strictly sticking to the incident command and the information to try to get people notified in any way we can. I don't know how many people were on the town hall the other night, but the Lake County Sheriff made a statement that I wanted to repeat, which is they found that there is no one communication method that will get the information to everybody. So some people have a phone, some people have internet, some people have a cell service. You know, everybody gets their information in different ways. So his point is we need to send it in as many ways as we can. So that was, again, supporting the idea of things like Safety Net, where we're using it like a local phone tree, 21st century phone tree is what we call it. So please sign up for that. And the only other thing I wanted to mention, if you look at item number 6, is the sheriff is now saying they're going to use these bi-tone alerts, the European style sirens of the dee 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 dee, and that is now going to be also something to listen for, that a emergency vehicle siren can put out that 2-tone siren notice. If you hear that, that means that they want you to evacuate. So there's a couple of things here with the Facebook and the bi-tone alerts that are other things that we can be listening for and monitoring for. And the last thing on this page is about the address signs. And again, Doreen mentioned that everybody has asked us, please put up the nice big reflective signs. I can tell you from the chipper days we'll talk about in a minute, driving around the neighborhoods trying to find people, those signs stand out. You can see them. Otherwise, I drove past a house 2 or 3 times trying to find their address sign that was tucked up in the bushes or up on the house. So, you know, it's really important that we put out clear address signs so that they can find us. Does anybody have any questions, comments about the communication side of things like Safety Net and notifications?
Hey Keith, it's Jillian. I have a very quick question. We actually, I purchased one of the signs back at the meeting I attended in maybe in January, and then unfortunately wasn't able to go in February, and then of course COVID happened. Where is there a place where I could potentially pick it up? That is someone kind of the keeper of them?
Yeah, the signs are in town and Willard's at the office at 121 West Commercial. There's not always somebody here, so we need to coordinate on, you know, delivering it, picking it up, dropping it off, doing something. But all the signs are down here.
Okay, great. Could I reach out to I'll reach out to you all after the meeting about.
Yeah, well, info@sherwoodfirewise.org. If you just info@, that's the best way. That way everybody sees it and we'll deal with it.
Great, thank you.
Keith?
Betcha. Yeah.
Keith, Lynn here. If we signed up for Nixle and Everbridge last year, do we have to do it again?
Technically not. However, what I've heard from different people is it doesn't hurt to go back and check your listings, especially not so much the sending your zip code to the 888-777, but if you've gone to the sheriff's website, there's a lot of fields to fill out there. And it's a good idea to go back to that to make sure that your information is still there, but it's also that it's correct, especially if you've changed a phone number or changed an email or any of those things. So it's just like everything else. It's a good idea to just sort of check that if you've gone to the mendocinosheriff.com and entered in for the Everbridge system. You might see something, go, oh, I could update that or change that. Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Anybody else? Okay, Nancy.
I want to mention that when people put their signs up, put them on the road near your driveway, not on your house, so that it's visible at the road by the fire department.
And thank you, Nancy. This is Doreen. And I've noticed a lot of people posting about having poor cell reception and concerns about fire. And we all do have various difficulty in communications because we live so rurally. But one thing that I think is absolutely vital is that every household have a battery-powered radio. So if there is an emergency, you have a battery-powered radio, and you can get reception from local radio stations, even on the coast. Then you have a way of receiving information.
Excellent. You know, and since you mentioned battery, there's something else that people may not know, and that is that the phone company several years ago quit running new phone lines into the Brooktrails area, and they started using little multiplexer boxes. And what it does is it takes one line and it chops it up with an electronic circuit, so they can put more than one line, more than one phone service on one particular wire. And what that has done is allowed them to continue to grow phone service without putting more wires up. However, those little multiplexers take power. And in some of the power outages we had last year, our landline, which we've had for 30 some odd years, that used to have a wire that went all the way from my house all the way down to the central office in Willits, now is on a multiplexer, and it was dead because the battery died during a long power outage. Had no idea about that. So a lot of folks do have a landline that think that, and some still do have a solid line that goes all the way to town, but you may be on a multiplexer, and I don't know how you can tell. If somebody knows, chime in, but it is something to think about, that you may lose even your landline in one of these power outages, which, you know, we've come to rely on that. So anyway, something else to be aware of.
Well, thank you, Keith. And along those lines too, I'm surprised about people that don't know about battery packs. So if we lose power and your cell phone's running low, you want to make sure you have charged battery packs at all times that you can use to recharge.
Okay, so moving on to planning and funding. Hey, Brian, why don't you, if you wouldn't mind, talk a little bit about North Coast Opportunities, and particularly the AmeriCorps volunteer, what stuff that happened recently?
Let me just back up a minute, back to communications. I like the idea of also alerting your neighbors with 3 blasts on a horn, wait 3 beats and 3 blasts again. And that just wakes your neighbors up to get them alerted to that something's happening that needs their attention and may possibly come to your aid. North Coast Opportunities we've been awarded a grant through their EPIC project, emergency preparedness, I see, and we're going to use that money to fund a program coordinator position, and that's still in the works. AmeriCorps is in Mendo County till the 16th, I believe, and they've been helping us with outreach for this Chipper Day project, which is funded through the Mendocino County Fire Safe Council, tune of $70,000 of chipper days where we can bring materials to the curbside and they'll chip it up and haul it away. And what AmeriCorps team has been doing for us is contacting landowners and informing them of the program and what kind of materials we want, and determine if they're going to have something to be picked up tomorrow. And that looks like we're full up there. Our next Chipper Day will be in the first week of August. What we're seeing with that program is that it's little bits, houses are spread out. If you have something that you want to contribute, if you have something you want to have picked up, it'd be really good if you could talk to your neighbors and get them to bring some stuff out too, so the truck can come to one location and cover a lot of people instead of driving all over, spending their day driving to pick this stuff up. Back to the planning and funding, there was a connection made through one of our Firewise meetings a few months ago with Cal EPA, and we were hoping to get that grant, but it didn't work this time. The planning and funding team can always use volunteers to help us suss out these grants and to work on the application process. The CAL FIRE, this is a new one that Keith is going to have to talk about.
Yep.
I
can take the next couple of.
And you can take it from here. Well, let me finish up with the raffle, then it's back to you, Keith.
Okay.
So I have written your names down. There are still some people. If you look in your chat box at the bottom of the screen, there's some phone numbers I can't identify as people. At the end of the meeting tonight, I will blindly choose a name or phone number, and that person will win a prize. which would be an address sign or a lovely T-shirt. So stick around for that, and back to you, Keith.
Thanks, Brian. I like the set there too. That's great. The T-shirt in the background. What a deal. All right. Yeah, the California Fire Foundation is yet another organization that helps to finance various types for grant financing for everything from, you know, fuel management and public safety. So what we're applying for is $15,000 to do some more roadside fuel reduction in the rural subdivisions. We've been working quite a bit in Brooktrails, so we're trying to work out in Sylvandale, Spring Creek, and the Gates, and move some stuff out that way. And so that's due just next week. But it's you know, it's a good chance of getting that one. The Mendocino County Resource Conservation District, MCRCD, those of you who've been with us for a while, that Joe Scriven is down there. Mary Mayata, as Forrester, works with them. And this, you know, basically they hosted, and they do host still, the Mendocino County Fire Safe Council. But Joe in particular has talked to our group about funding that's available for roads and water projects, because part of emergency access is not just getting the vegetation off the roads, which we're working on, but it's also having a good road in the first place, and also having extra water for firefighting purposes, because once the trucks start heading down the road there aren't a lot of hydrants out in the rural areas. So the watershed areas, the Eel River watershed and the coastal watershed, the Noyo and coastal watershed, to fund projects to reduce sediment into those watersheds from bad roads, just as one particular item. And the funding that's available it's a cost share kind of a funding, but what they do is they want an assessment of your roads to inventory what kind of condition they're in and what kind of improvements need to be done with drainage and culverts and road crowning and all the things you need to do to have a really good road. That assessment then is done, it's paid for, it's an engineering service, it's paid for by the property owners and grant funds. So the Gates has already done that. Paloma and the Road Association over at the Swarm already have their assessment done for all of their roads. And Joel Marshall with the Spring Creek Road Association spearheaded an effort to get an assessment on most of the Spring Creek roads, mostly focused on the coastal side. But we just had a meeting recently with the three subdivisions, the Gates, Spring Creek, and Sylvandale, to talk about doing a joint project for construction for road improvements, and also for the assessments for the remaining roads in Spring Creek and Sylvandale that haven't had the assessments done yet. So that's a project that we're working on that would give, you know, better roads, and also the vegetation management that we're preparing to do with the CAL FIRE money, a great combination there. On the water side, again, you may remember our Firewise Expo that we had. We had a speaker from Trout Unlimited. And again, it's another fishery watershed related funding source agency, and they're looking at trying to improve the stream flows, to augment the stream flows into the late spring, summer months by storing large amounts of rainwater and then slowly releasing that just to keep the streams flowing and keep the riparian habitats healthy. And part of that is with that funding, they can fund large water storage that can be also used for firefighting purposes. So we're talking to both Joe Scriven, and then Patty Madigan also works in that office, and she's the coastal rep, about putting together proposals for funding rainwater collection, what we call tank hydrants, in the sense that 30,000 gallons qualifies as a hydrant. And on your insurance adjuster coming out, they ask you, how far are you from the nearest hydrant? So the more of these tank hydrants we can put in that qualify as hydrants, we can get better insurance coverage, as well as having more water and improving the environment, and capture some of these sometimes 75% grant funds. So that's what planning and funding is doing. And as Brian said, we really would like to have more people helping us, because there are funding sources out there, and it takes a lot of work to put together a proposal that gets funded. So anybody have anything to say on that one? Questions? Okay, so the big news is tomorrow is our first chipper day, and I want to thank everybody that's participated and helped with that. And we will see how it goes tomorrow. We've got about 20 properties. It's going to be one full day picking up, and Brian Ferry Taylor has done a tremendous job in helping to coordinate all this, and he and I went driving around to confirm everybody's piles are out and ready to go. Don't know how many tons of material we're going to take out here tomorrow, but I've got a feeling we're going to be working all day. So it's being pretty successful. Again, we always need more volunteers. We have a list of all of the various property owners in the subdivision, and we just need to contact people because they, once they hear about the program, they think, sure, why not take advantage of that? So please tell everybody that the form is available on the Chipper Day. Landowner access agreement is the form that's needed. It's on the website along with a nice description of the program, and that's the sherwoodfirewise.org website. So please try to get your neighbors. And as Brian was saying, ideally, like I was over, there's a group over in the Daphne Padula area, several different houses and lots together, and they all went together and moved the material to one vacant lot and made a long series of piles on that lot. So it's going to be real easy for the crew to come by and pick up 4 or 5 different parcels, materials in one nice location on a flat street with plenty of room to get the chipper in. So the more we can help them, the more homes we'll be able to service until the money runs out. So anybody want to volunteer? Again, info@sherwoodfirewise.org if you do. I think the one thing I want to say that I've mentioned before is that we've gotten really good participation from vacant lot owners from out of the area that they will allow us access if we'll do the work, which, doesn't sound like much, but that's something the fire department has tried to do because funding does come up like what this is and some of the CAL FIRE money, where we can actually go and treat some of these vacant lots where the landowner isn't paying the taxes and they don't care and they won't take care of their property, but it's within the 100-foot defensible space of somebody's home. So it's been a big step forward, and we see this as just the beginning of a process, because this isn't just in Brooktrails. This is happening in many different subdivisions where there are absentee landowners or vacant property owners that are not maintaining their properties, and it's really becoming a
Keith, this is Doreen.
Yeah.
And I'd like to add to how much I and many other people appreciate all the work that you and Brian are doing to make sure this program is happening. And also mention that the one thing everyone that is involved in this and has their debris chipped can do is let neighbors know about it. And I know that's been mentioned before, but you can put a posting on your Facebook page of how great your lot looks now, so people can be more aware of these programs, because we can only, as an organization, reach so many people. But each person on this call can reach 2 or 3 people as well, or write a letter to the editor or something to get this information out so more people can take advantage of these really free services, so they and their family are safer.
Thanks, Doreen.
And that's all I wanted to say.
All right, anybody else have questions, comments on chipper days?
Hi, Keith, this is Rose.
Okay, hi, Rose.
So how could we get a hold of the landowner access agreements that we can utilize the DTS and his design people?
Yeah, so this particular grant that we have is for the Brooktrails subdivision. So it's oriented towards the small lots and tightly packed homes and everything. And so,
yes.
So that's what that is. However, that landowner access agreement is needed for any kind of grant funding. All it is a mutual indemnification. It holds each other harmless, so the property owner's protected and the contractor and the fire safe council are protected. Those are available on the Sherwood Firewise website at sherwoodfirewise.org, and you can download the form and fill it out and send it in. The funding that we're looking to get from the California Fire Foundation and some of these other organizations are for the rural parcels to do basically the same kinds of things: roadside fuel reduction first, and then go into defensible space areas second. And that's been our, sort of what we're trying to do. It was easier to get. Brooktrails funding was a very high priority. Brooktrails has been identified as the most dangerous subdivision and pretty much in the state. I don't even know in the nation. It was in the national news many months ago. We were identified from outside the community as being very dangerous by somebody just looking at conditions in communities from the outside. So, and we live in a vulnerable area and a bunch of other kinds of things. So we're primed for getting funding. The rural parcels are tougher because of the fact that there's just that much more acreage to deal with. But if we can work on access roads first to clear those for safety, and also just for best roads, and also the defensible space, driveways and defensible space. There's other funding available, and I've talked about it before, the EQIP program from the USDA. They're in Ukiah, and it's the Natural Resource Conservation Services, NRCS. And the EQIP program basically will fund a portion of, usually it's 50 or 60%. In my case, it ended up being almost 66% of the cost of the project in grant funds. And we did a shaded fuel break, 100 feet on either side of our driveway, and also on 100 feet on the downhill side of our road, 19 acres total. And we got about 66% of the cost of that and funded in a grant. So that's funding that's available for all of the landowners that have 20-acre parcels. And if we could go together as a group with the several parcels, that's what they really like to see, is a bigger impact for their amount of time working on something. So again, whether it's Sherwood Ranch, Spring Creek, Sylvandale, Gates, the more we can do as a group to put those proposals together, inventory ourselves, and put in a project request that's bigger. That's what the funding agencies like, because it's the same amount of work for them, whether it's a little bitty project or a great big project, really. So, so does that help, Rose?
Yes, it does. So in order to access the EQIP program, I go onto the website?
That would be contacting the Natural Resource Conservation Services directly.
Okay.
They're in Ukiah. It's a USDA office. It's down by the tractor supply, in Ukiah. Great office down there. But you can get on their website or give their office a phone call, and it's EQIP is the name of the program.
Okay, and it was natural resource. I didn't get that whole thing.
Natural Resource Conservation Services.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you.
NRCS. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Anybody else? I see Susanna on the phone. You're first on the list for tomorrow, Susanna, just so you know. All right. Oops, sorry. I need some help here. I keep getting people coming in and dropping out, and then I end up in the waiting room. Okay, so I'm going to move on from chipper days, and we'll let you guys know how that works out tomorrow. I'm going to be up for going to the pub, I think, afterwards. Okay, here we go. This we talked about last month at the meeting, the update of the emergence of this CAL FIRE project. Is that you can see the route. I'm sorry, the map isn't real explanatory, but this is Sherwood Road running along here, all the way up to the intersection of 101, and it starts down at Main Street in Willits. And then we also are going to do roadside fuel reduction all along Ridge Road, Blue Lake Road, Timber Road, back to Sherwood Road, so that we have these two access corridors in or out, whichever way you want to figure it. So if the fire's coming up the hill, coming down the hill, coming up this way, coming down that way, we have options. That's really what it's about. These are already existing roads, so these aren't the private emergency access roads. These are just some of the main access corridors. The neat thing that happened with the CAL FIRE grant was that the CAL FIRE said, why don't we use some of the CAL FIRE grant fund for roadside fuel reduction on the Willits Creek emergency access route vegetation clearing, and also to sort of go back and touch up Furco in a couple of places, although we drove Furco and it just looks beautiful. It's like a park. So I'll talk about that a little bit more. So that's the news on that. The forester, the RPF, Registered Professional Forester, is working now on the CEQA planning. We identified some areas for temporary refuge areas, and these would be places that are off of the road, some of the large open areas that we could develop into a place that people could, instead of just driving, just get out of the fire, pull into this big lot that we can clean every year, keep it burned off or mowed down to the dirt, have some water supply there, a nice gate, so on and so forth. So CAL FIRE was very, very encouraging about doing this. And we've been, again, talking about this for a long time. Same thing with the county about pull-out locations along Sherwood Road. If we're going to use it as an evacuation route, there's a lot of narrow and windy places. It'd be great to have some areas to be able to pull out for people to turn around. I mean, just all that, it could be improved greatly. And then I already mentioned the rainwater tank hydrant installations. And again, CAL FIRE said, if you can get us water all the way out Sherwood Road in various places, we'd love it, because, you know, people say, well, there's ponds. You know, if you try to drive a fire truck up to a pond to draft out of, anybody that's ever done that, you know, it's not the thing you really want to do if you can hook up to a hydrant someplace. So, you know, we want it all, but that's something they thought was great. And so the emergency access route part of that, which are now sort of blending together with CAL FIRE, which is really good. They're going to do that vegetation work this year, and Supervisor Haschik is still working on that route to go from the from Primrose down to Highway 20. So that's still in the works, and we already talked about the emergency access route funding source with Chronic helping us out with the county. And again, I really want to say County Council, Christian Curtis has just been wonderful. He really listens, he's engaging, he takes this as a high priority. He says what we're doing is exactly the kind of thing that's needed for these communities with one-way in and out, limited access. So we're really spearheading an effort that could end up being not only good for other communities in our county, but also for other communities wherever all these situations occur, which are all over the country, really. And I wanted to in particular point out, this is something we came up with when we first started a couple of years ago, that Ridge Road at the top of the subdivision doesn't really connect. The streets, when you look at the old maps, the old roads, Ridge Road came along, goes along all the way out and wraps back around. And at this point where it's green in here, these are segments of Ridge Road and other roads that were there that go onto private property. And so there are gates along the certain places in Ridge Road that don't connect anymore. And you can see that if somebody up here in this upper part of this subdivision needed to get out of there and something was coming up the hill from the skunk train or up the hill from Highway 20, they're going to want to go out this way. And if they can't get down the hill, they want to try to get up the hill. But if you live in this area, you have to go all the way back down to Primrose, go all the way across over to Goose, come all the way up Goose to Ridge, and then go out this way. So, Supervisor Haschik is talking to Howard Daschel, the Transportation Department, to see what we might be able to do to work on these as emergency access routes for emergency use only. And there are gates there in private property, so we can do just the same thing we've done on the other routes. But that's another piece of our overall strategy. So here's the route going down to Highway 20, over to Exley Lane, the Willits Creek route going down, the Furco route going out this way. So, you know, you can see the progress that we've made and what we need to continue to do to keep, you know, moving forward with these, because otherwise if we don't, if they're out of use, we're going to need them. And that's in an emergency. This is exactly what we're preparing for. All right, anybody have any comments on the emergency access routes? Okay. So the topic for the evening tonight is evacuation preparation. We just had a fire in the Spring Creek subdivision, structure, cars, explosions, got into the trees, was spotting out ahead of the, you know, moving on out. Luckily it was cool, calm, relatively moist. So we were very lucky in all of that, but it just shows that we're already in fire season and we need to be prepared. So what we're going to do is just go through the website of the readyforwildfire.org. This is the official evacuation plan for the county, if you will. as far as public education goes. So these websites, and I'll go to the website in a minute, we'll show you. Tonight we're going to look at the evacuation guide, a checklist, and some evacuation steps to do when you're preparing to leave, because there's a lot of things you want to do. Number one, you need to be ready to go, but also when you leave, there's things about what you want to do with your doors and windows and every other thing. One thing I'll note on the website, and I wanted to note it here, is that the state in the last couple of years with all the catastrophes have discovered the counties don't really talk well to each other. They all speak different languages in their emergency terms. And so there's a unified command work that's going on to try to make everybody use the same language. So what my understanding is that now our official evacuation warning and evacuation order will be the terms that we'll see, not voluntary or mandatory, which were prior terminology, and we'll see that on the CAL FIRE site that hasn't been updated yet. But I mean, you can sort of tell what they mean, but you got the basic idea that we need to have common terms and common processes so we all are doing the same thing together and understanding what needs to be done. So this is the readyforwildfire.org website, and really encourage you to go and look at this. We've already been through the ready part, which is the getting your home prepared, defensible space, hardening, all those kinds of things. We went through last month on the getting set part about having a plan, and I mentioned tonight about the COVID aspects of that. So we'll look a little bit at things like your emergency supply kit, but even your family communication plan. I mean, with social isolation, and how are they going to deal with evacuation with hundreds of people, and communications around all that. It's, we need to be prepared because we can't really count on the emergency responders to be as prepared, to do it for us. Insurance preparedness on this one, just to touch it briefly, a lot of things are going on with insurance, and that's something else that Sherwood Firewise has been looking into, and I think that's another group project for what can we do for group level insurance to, because it's all about, the insurance pool is all about insuring for those that have losses, get a little bit from everybody, and the ones that get losses get the money, and the ones that don't have losses have paid for the good of everybody. But some way to cover this, because it's going to continue to get worse, and if you don't have insurance on your home, that's going to cause lots of other problems. So we all know what's happening with that, and we need to be more proactive to do it. But tonight we want to talk about what are you going to do if you get that evacuation warning. And let's see if I can share this quick little video. It's sort of, we'll see if you can hear the sound on this.
After 5 years of drought and with millions of dead trees, wildfires in California are burning hotter, faster, and more unpredictably. Be ready now. Get set by ensuring you know what to take and where to go if you have to evacuate. And when a wildfire does strike in your area, go early for the safety of you and your family, and so firefighters can do their job. Remember, ready, set, go. Learn more from CAL FIRE at readyforwildfire.org.
Exciting, but the thing we want to look at is your evacuation checklist, and we have on our website, and I'll go to this, we put together a evacuation checklist to use. This is from a combination of a bunch of different sources. We had a dozen different checklists, and we said, gosh, why don't we put the best of all these together? So I left it big so you can actually read it a little bit, but again, it talks about Nixle and the sheriff, so make sure you're signed up for that, and also get on to, have a scanner, have your battery powered radio, check your social media. It's like all of these things matter to get information, because in a crisis, you don't really know what's going on all the time. So the more places you have to get information, the better. All right, so an evacuation warning is really what the first level is. And if you hear evacuation warning, that means that you should go ahead and start going and figure that you're going to be leaving shortly. I mean, and in fact, what the sheriff said on their talk is that go ahead, pack up and leave, that even if they call the warning off in 10 or 20 minutes, the exercise of loading all your stuff up, getting in your car, getting out of there and doing everything you have to do will tell you for the real deal what it is you're missing and what's really important. We practiced that last year in our evacuation testing, and a lot of people had noticed various things about not being ready. Okay, so, you know, basically, here's some of the things, and these are if time allows kinds of things, because if the fire's burning up right by you, got to go. But all these things, shut all your doors and windows, pull the combustibles away, especially really light curtains, move things away from the walls and the windows into the inside of the house a little bit, because it's going to get hot. They say leave your lights on in the smoke. If even in the daytime, it can be dark enough. At least if your lights are on, they can tell there's a house there. It helps. Shut off fans, you know. So, I mean, these are all kinds of things that and in your house, you'll have to look around and figure for yourself what it is that makes sense to do. But especially outside, and this is what we focused on last time, that embers landing. I was talking to Sheriff Kendall, and he made the comment about who would have thought that they would have lost the Kmart store in Santa Rosa that was completely surrounded by asphalt pavement. You know, it's just like the embers landing on that building caught the roof on fire and burned the whole building down. So it's, you know, that is our biggest vulnerability is embers from a fire. So anything you can do to move burnable things away from your house, at least 5 feet of clean all the way around your house, and further is better. Here it says keep your combustibles 15 feet away from any tanks, you know, so your small like propane tanks, you know, don't put them right next to your firewood place or firewood pile, for example. This is another one about water. Like I know Tony always said several times about filling up buckets of water all around your house. And again, if you have time to do these kinds of things, fire season right now, maybe it's a good time to get some buckets, get the 5-gallon buckets with the plastic lids so you don't get mosquitoes in them, or some other kind of way to just have water all over the place. Definitely clean your gutters, all this kind of stuff. So I won't keep going through it, but this checklist is on the Sherwood Firewise website. It's in our checklist, forms and checklists. The other thing I wanted to mention though is shelter in place, which when we started working on these projects a couple of years ago, nobody really wanted to talk about shelter in place as being, you know, something to talk about because it's just really dangerous. However, you may wake up and be surrounded by fire. And if you haven't thought about it, and it could just be your house is on fire, but if you haven't thought about what you're going to do, you don't have a plan, you're going to panic. So you need to sort of practice to think about if you get trapped in your car, if you get trapped in your house, where would you go as far as if you're out on the street, you know, there's every kind of thing that can happen. So you need to be thinking about those things, having the proper fire clothes ready. Wool blankets are really handy. If you can get one of the little fire shelter blankets, the reflective material, that's something else that would be really good to have for just your personal body. I was on the fire department several times, had to lay down in the dirt. I didn't really ever have a shake and bake, the fire shelter. I had to use that much, but there was enough fire where we wanted to get down on the ground, facing the ground in a nice cool place. If you can get water, great. But you know, again, you may be trapped in your house. You may have to go in your bathroom, fill your tub up with water, fill your sink up with water. So just think about all those kinds of things. Especially think about who can you help. And this is another piece of us knowing our neighbors of who is it that you know needs the most help. Because if you're able to help, and this is what the CERT volunteers can help do, is to help with other people that are transportation limited or that they're disabled, or even people right now that are ill and you know that they're not able to take care of themselves. The more we can help each other, that's who the first responders are going to be, is all of us locally. So anyway, so think about what you might do if you got trapped someplace. I like this one too. Don't just abandon your car in the road if it's possible to do that, because that's what happened in Paradise. There were lots of cars that just stopped in the road, and there were people that were waiting behind them thinking there was somebody in the car, and it took them a while to figure out that cars were abandoned. So, you know, things get crazy when evacuation happens. Then the evacuation order, and this is now you're definitely gone if you're not already gone. So warning, you should be packing everything up with the idea you're going to be leaving in as quickly as you can possibly leave. And if you hear, oh, going to call it off, and again, safety net, we try to do that. So we let you know there's an incident. We let you know when the incident is terminated. That's before you even get something like an evacuation warning. So the incident just happened. The dispatch went off. I think it was like 11:37. The first safety net information was coming in about 10 minutes later to our network. The fire chief showed up within 20 minutes of that call, and we had sent about that same time. We're sending out our first incident notification about that. Once the chief got on site and confirmed that it was a big fire, we went ahead and sent that notice out. And not very long after that, the sheriff posted an evacuation warning on the sheriff's Facebook page, but did not send out the nixle. So I didn't even know, we didn't know until after the event that had happened. But we did issue the incident was closed, the second notice, so that people knew that it was over. And I think that that's a valuable service because people see the smoke, hear the sirens, want to know what's going on, try to not call the fire department and 911 and the CAL FIRE and tie them up. I think this is working well. So I wanted to hear from anybody. Did you get or not get your safety net notification? Any comments about that?
Keith, this is Doreen, and I certainly did get the safety net notification, both of them, and really appreciated how quickly it was sent out.
This is Dennis and Mary. We got the notification very early, and also the all clear notification, which we much appreciated.
Yeah, we heard the planes go over, and about 2 seconds later, Safety Net came on and let us know what was going on. It was wonderful.
I got the Safety Net, and then our phone tree actually worked really well, and so we called everybody, Kim and Fran and I in Spring Creek, and everybody was very appreciative.
This is Rose, and I got a call also, and they called when it was under control. I really appreciated that too.
Yes, and this is Larry, and we got a call and an email both.
Debbie McCubbin got the safety net and also contacts from Paloma on Third Gate.
Yeah, there were lots of phone calls going on too. I mean, it was really lighting up the boards.
Yeah, excellent.
And who's that just was speaking, the 272-3630?
That's Debbie McCubbin.
Oh, thanks, Debbie. Okay, let me go back to the ready, set, go thing here. Okay, so this is pretty much the same thing we went through on that checklist, but this is just another example from CAL FIRE's or Ready for Wildfires website. And again, it's pretty much the same kind of things. I don't know, there are people that live that are in our community that have had to evacuate. I would really like to, at some point, have a discussion session with people that have had to evacuate about all the things they learned and the things they would do differently, and so on and so forth, because, we could practice all we want to, but until it really happens, you really don't understand the panic and if you don't have that plan, if you don't have the checklist, if you don't have it practiced, you're not going to be as successful in getting things done. So, having that checklist on your door, literally, or on a clipboard that's hanging out, so that if you're just saying evacuation warning, okay, first thing, just check, just start doing it. And again, start loading up the car, start getting the people together. Even things like having a ladder outside so that the first responders can get there. The other thing that's talked about a bunch, and there's much more focus on, even with COVID now, is animals. Because we all, we have pets, and a lot of us have other types of, livestock and other animals, horses, whatever. Same kind of thing. You've got to take a lot more preparation if you're going to have animals, to deal with animals. So the more notice we can have, that's why Safety Net, we're trying to say that we want it just to know if there's a fire, period. We want to know about it, whether it's anywhere near an evacuation or not. At least we know what's going on. You're smelling it, you're seeing it, you're hearing the sirens. It helps everybody, but it also allows people that need more time to prepare, more time to prepare. One of the other topics that we've all had to deal with is the power outages. And again, there's been PG&E was part of that town hall. the other night. I'm hoping that a lot of people did participate in that, but you know, you hear the same sort of platitudes of, oh, we're doing the best we can kind of thing. But I know that PG&E camera was used for taking a picture of that condor incident. So, you know, just that alone, knowing we have fire cameras in various places that can see around the county all over, is something that can be accessed in all, you know, 24/7 from various locations. So PG&E is doing things like that to try to be more prepared, but they're still going to have these power shutdowns, and they don't really know how long they're going to be. So things like somebody talking about manual opening the garage door, and I know, you know, I won't say her name, but you know, one of our good friends here, you know, tried that and said the door's pretty darn heavy, you know. So again, these are the things you want to try ahead of time to make sure that you don't get stuck if the power's out and you've got to get your car out of the garage and you don't know how to unhook your automatic garage door opener, and you can't lift it up because it's too heavy or whatever. You want to know that before the emergency. You know, shoes, how many times, you know, shoes in the car. I mean, put shoes, how many people, we've got plenty of shoes, right? Just put a few shoes around, because how many people run out of their house because it's an emergency and then they don't have shoes. So anyway, this checklist, so please go look at that for power outages. And heaven forbid we have a power outage and a fire at the same time, like we sort of kind of did in 2017. Okay, and then this is basically just talking about you got to take action. So where are you going to go when, you know, they're going to try to tell you maybe, I mean, literally, where will we go? Where the high school has sort of been one place, you know, the Rec Grove down in that part of town is another kind of place. You know, if it's just Brooktrails, it's one thing. If it's, you know, bigger areas, these are the kinds of things that the evacuation plan is supposed to be addressing. But with the COVID situation, nobody's really gotten there yet. So we all have to prepare ourselves to take care of ourselves, knowing that if we all do have to evacuate, that we're not going to go to a place that's fully prepared, and that we have to fend for ourselves. So having other locations you can go outside of the area, all that stuff is important. And here's where I want to mention, if you go and look at this, that the terms voluntary and mandatory are still on this page. They say other people use other words like precautionary, but our official terminology at this point is an evacuation warning and an evacuation order. And they thought that makes it pretty clear that one is warning you and one is saying you got to do it. So that's, you know, be aware of that. Let's see. There's one more piece on this. Okay, and then animals we talked about. And, you know, we had a training for first responders that Sherwood Firewise sponsored. It was a national certification program for large animal evacuation. And I think 12 first responders in Mendocino County got that certification. But you can imagine having not only to evacuate, but also animals that are injured, and having to plan ahead for all of the taking care of injured animals as well as just animals in general. So if you're an animal owner, you need to have your own preparations made, and most people do. But even with pets, you know, pets have to have their own go bag too. And then I mentioned the what to do if you're trapped part earlier, and this is that shelter in place that's on the checklist. You may be trapped in your car, you may be trapped running, you may be trapped inside your house. So you need to think about it. Just walk around and look at things. I think, you know, a bathroom with a bunch of tile, with a water source, with a shower and a sink, and fill it all up with water. At least you've got a bunch of water all around you, and you're hopefully in a place that's, you know, in a relatively secure area of the house, not a whole lot of big windows and things like that. But, you know, you may have a basement, you may have something else, but, you know, you might have to shelter in place by staying inside your house, or staying inside a car, or diving into a ditch someplace. And these are all terrible things, but that's what we got to prepare for.
Keith, this is Doreen. I have a question along what you're talking about. Do you, just from your own personal experience, Do you recommend that people buy fire blankets and keep one of those in their car or in their home, both for, let's say, a kitchen fire on your stove, but more so if you have to shelter in place in your home and you jump into your tub and there's water, to put that type of blanket over you?
Mm-hmm. You know, it's funny, the way I've been thinking about recently, watching the evolution of the defensible space of, it was clear the 100-foot defensible space, and now it's like start at the house and work out. So let's think of the body as the house, that, you know, if you're wearing flammable clothes, it's not good. So right away, you know, cotton, wool, things like that, just from your basic clothing choices, especially in these hot, dry kind of days where you can think, this is kind of like fire weather, I need to be doing something a little different. A good solid wool blanket, just a really nice heavy duty wool blanket, is probably one of your best investments for fire shelter, as well as for cold, you're getting wet. I mean, there's a bunch of things that wool is just really hard to beat. The reflective fire material, whether it's a fire shelter, which is the official thing that you dive into and it makes a little pup tent over you and you try to survive, or there's actually, you can buy material that's just that same material, but it comes in rolls. I think that's going to be a good investment. I've been thinking about it for something like to put on top of your car, for example. You could wrap one around your car. I was surprised to find out there are services that, for wealthy people, where people come out and actually wrap your house with this fire. It's called FireZat, I think. And it's just a fire retardant barrier reflective material. And they just roll it around the house and wrap it up. And there's literally paid crews to go out to homes to do that, if you got enough money. But back during what you're saying is, if you had one of those in your car, a wool blanket, or reflective material, if you got trapped in your car, you could get down on the floor and put the material over you, because the heat comes through the glass. I mean, quite a few people got burned severely. I know some equipment operators that got burned pretty bad inside of a cab, just from the heat coming through the window. So, you know, anything you can do to reflect it off of your body and keep it going out, the better. And then you start moving out from that. Say if you're in your car, what's the best thing to do? If you're in a building, where's the best place to be? So, you know, those are but I like the idea of thinking from your body out, just like we're doing on the defensible space of, you know, what's right on top of your body that you're wearing, and then what's the thing you can wrap around it as the next layer, and then where are you in your surroundings with the 10 feet around you, so you're not getting, you know, burned from even radiant heat will burn you badly. So being prepared is good. Anybody else?
Great.
Keith?
Yep.
Keith, I have a question. So I'm thinking about the people at the gates and Timberline Road, north and south. I don't have a view at all, really. I mean, I just see trees where I live. Mm-hmm. If I had to evacuate and I got down to Sherwood Road, I would prefer to go to the Laytonville, you know, on Sherwood Road, the back way there. Mm-hmm. But if the fire was coming from that direction, that would be a mistake. So how could I make that kind of a decision quickly?
Yeah, and that's exactly, Lynn, what all the fire departments will tell you, is that that's why, one of the reasons why they have a hard time issuing notices, because a lot of times they don't know. And you know, it's happening. They can sort of, if you listen to the scanner, that Broadcastify app on your cell phone or a handheld scanner, you can get those dispatches and they'll tell you exactly what's going on and pretty much where it is. So that's one of your best sources. You know, that's one of the things we're trying to do with Safety Net, is as soon as that dispatch is heard, that when somebody calls it in, that we're sending that notice out as soon as we know it's a confirmed incident. And that usually means somebody's actually showing up, or we're getting lots of phone calls from other people, or, you know, just like that incident the other day was clearly something we needed to notice out. But before that, even as far as how are you going to know, you know, where there's a fire, even before the scanner, is like lookouts, for example. And that was where several people, like the first information that came into the Telegram instant messaging app we had was a picture that somebody from over at Third Gate sent of the smoke column coming up off of the Condor fire. And so, you know, somebody else somewhere else far away from the incident was seeing it, and they put it into our network system, so we knew right away. They're saying, and they didn't know where it was. It looked like it was towards Spring Creek, but they didn't know if it was Timber Road or Blue Lake Road or what, you know, whatever. So, but it was ding, something's going on. And that to me is the most important thing, is a push kind of notice. You know, it's something that's dinging your message, it's ringing your phone. You know, it's something that makes you pay attention to it. And so anyway, back to lookouts. One of the things that we really want are for safety net is more people that have good views. And it doesn't matter which way your view is, because there may be a fire there one day, that can learn how to use the Telegram program, which is just an instant messaging app. So if you see a smoke column someplace, you can just type in saying, I'm seeing smoke over at, you know, Third Gate or whatever, what's going on? And, you know, that triggers sort of this internal phone tree communication network. And sometimes it's like, oh yeah, so-and-so doing a controlled burn. We know about it, it's okay. You know, it helps that communication. So, you know, try to do that too. But back to your question, if you saw, I mean, I don't know when you're leaving, Lynn, if you were leaving your place, you can't see anything, are you getting an evacuation warning? Because usually they'll tell you in something like a warning, saying if you need to leave, go this way or go that way.
Okay.
But you're still going to have to decide that for yourself as you're driving out towards Sherwood Road, which is your only way to get to anywhere else.
Yeah.
And as you're driving through, you're just going to have to look and see which way is it if you don't know. But again, I would say you don't have to drive a long distance. You just have to get to some place that you're not going to burn up. And just in Third Gate alone, we looked at a couple of places that are like temporary refuge areas that are big open fields. And I won't mention the person's name, but there's a person there that agreed to keep their place mowed down, really nice down to the dirt. And it's a big, large open field. So those are the kind of things we need to look at of how can we get out of the fire quickly. We don't have to drive to Laytonville. We don't have to drive to Willits. We just have to get out of the forest and into the open someplace.
Okay.
And so we're working on preparing some of those as an immediate gathering place just to figure out what's going on. And then you may want to go somewhere else from there, but at least you can get out of the fire and know you're not going to burn up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, there's got to be more out there. Who's preparing the best for evacuation? Go ahead.
You said somebody out there has prepared a place for an emergency refuge area, but you didn't want to give their name. How will we know where that is?
Yeah, we were working on getting an agreement of who's going to allow who to do what there. We've identified the place. We've identified a person that's willing to do that, but we don't have any kind of an agreement in place that would say we're going to publicize this information or put it on a map. I think it's more like a community kind of a thing where the Third Gate community, I mean, there's a big pond there, for example, in the middle of the Third Gate community, the gates, whatever. There's other sites like that, like we were out at Sherwood Ranch at Randy's pond out there. So, you know, people in communities sort of know each other, wouldn't necessarily want to have all of Brooktrails trying to evacuate to a 1 acre section of out Third Gate Road or something. So that's something we're going to need to talk about because it is private property. We're back to that issue on these emergency access routes that we want them available, but we don't want people just going out and abusing them and otherwise we won't be able to use them. But the other temporary refuge areas that CAL FIRE identified are right along Sherwood Road, and we would get an agreement with the landowner. And we would have a gate to access, and we would maintain that property. So that's more like a formalized evacuation kind of a thing. So that's what we're trying to do.
Hello, Keith. Can you hear me? This is Tony.
Hey, Tony.
Okay, you can. Good. I wanted to go back to spotting fires and the fact that people with view sheds should get used to scanning this time of year, looking for small columns of smoke and calling 911 when observed. Multiple reports are okay in the early stages of these fires. Bigger columns are generally already have many people who called in, but I've called in through the years many fires because I do spot small columns pretty quickly. And I also want to thank you for just your ability to keep us all entertained and informed. I think you're doing a great job. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. I really appreciate it, Tony. Tony has lots of fire experience in the past, and obviously on the board and a bunch of other community things. And he was the one who mentioned keeping the buckets of water around your home, which is another easy thing for people to do. But thank you, Tony. That's it's come up a lot of times that we're trying to keep people from calling 911, overly using that. But by the same token, we don't want to have somebody not call 911 to report an incident. So that's the first thing that if anybody is contacting, say, have you already called 911 about this? Because that's the first thing you should do. And like Tony said, if they already know, they'll say, we already have that incident, it's okay. And so that, because it may be they say, no, we didn't know about that one. So minutes count. The quicker we can get that in, the quicker they can dispatch. I can tell you just from the past couple of years that they are dispatching just amazing amounts of resources at the drop of the first dispatch. I mean, they're just like calling in the helicopters and the bombers and the bulldozers. And I mean, they're hitting it hard because they learned that you just got to jump on it. Even if it's a little fire, it can turn into a really big fire quickly. So that's back to Tony's point. The more we can help them to identify if there's a fire, calling 911, and also the more we can be prepared to take care of ourselves so we're not a burden on these first responders, because there's not that many of them and they're just people like us that are trying to do their job. So we want to do as much as we can to prepare for ourselves. And those of us that have lived here a long time have heard the sheriff say it, have heard the fire chief say it, you're on your own. I mean, that's been a mantra around here, that in a big incident, we can't count on having people driving down the street, knocking on your door, saying, excuse me, but we might want to think about getting out of here. That kind of stuff isn't really going to happen realistically in a big event. So that's why we're doing all of this, to be more prepared. And I really appreciate
one more comment.
Yeah, you bet.
I want to say on that recent fire, as an example, we have a strategy in Brooktrails Fire that we put 250-gallon foam units on both our chief and battalion chief's vehicles. And so they're usually first on the scene, and they're not only giving a report on conditions, but they actually begin to put out the spot fires such as occurred in this recent fire. So they're already fighting the fire before any other resources arrive, and they use a foam system that actually keeps those spot fires from generally rekindling prior to the arrival of the main engines.
Tony, just since you're talking, have you heard anything about the sheriff's use of the Facebook page for evacuation warnings? Is that any protocol that you're aware of? Because we've been sort of trying to track it back.
I have not. It's something I'll certainly ask about, but I can imagine they have a protocol to put it up on social media first as an early warning for those who are going to be astute and turn on their computers and go to Facebook. I think because the incident was quickly resolving, they didn't need to go to that secondary process with the initial full alert. They do want to avoid panicking the Sherwood Road corridor because what can happen rapidly is that.
Yeah, I think the thing that I was concerned about is that the community that's getting the evacuation warning, the sheriff has the capability through the Everbridge system to just draw a ring around those parcels and send them notice. Now, all those parcels may not be signed up with that service. They might not have their cell phone or their telephone or their email or whatever to receive those notices, but putting something out on Facebook, what I noticed was there were like 366 shares and 87 comments when I looked at it, and most of them were, why didn't I get my Nixle notice?
Right.
Because you can say, yeah, you turn on your computer if you're around your computer, and yeah, you go to the sheriff's Facebook page, which nobody ever told me to go to a Facebook page. That's a whole lot of somebody thinking about doing something as compared to my phone ringing saying, hey, guess what? There's a fire happening right next door to you. So that's
I think that is really good input to give the sheriff immediately early in the season so that he's aware that too much information early on is not necessarily a sin.
Well, and you can see I've signed up with Willits and with Lake County, and if others want to do that to get an idea of how other jurisdictions use the Nixle system, Lake County and Willits both send out quite a few notices about street closings, certainly about things about fire incidents, but also, you know, strangers in the neighborhood or a bear on Main Street. I mean, I've seen all kinds of things. And, you know, the concern about it's too much information, it's never bothered, all that stuff never bothered me. I would much rather know about that than to find out later that there was an evacuation warning in my neighborhood that I didn't even know about. And,
exactly.
You know, so, you know, I would, and I can tell you from our experience with Safety Net, when we started Safety Net, we had a question: do you want to hear about everything in the entire Safety Net jurisdiction, which is all of Brooktrails and all these remote 30-acre plus parcels or whatever? And basically everybody said, yeah, because as like Dennis and Mary saying, the planes flew over their home in Brooktrails heading out to Spring Creek, and people over in Third Gate were seeing a smoke column. And, you know, I mean, we're in a small enough community where everybody does want to know, because when they hear the sirens or see the smoke, now they, you know, they're able to find out more information about it locally. So, you know, I think that's our goal. But the sheriff, and actually it's a great time to say it, the sheriff agreed to be a speaker next month. So we'll be promoting that, and so it's good we're talking about this now. They're really working on trying to get this unified command and protocols together. So the sheriff can talk to us also about what they're doing with COVID, because they're rapidly trying to figure out fire emergency evacuation for their own crews to have enough material and equipment for all of their personal protective gear. We need to also augment all of our go kits with personal protective gear and hand sanitizer and all those kinds of things that we weren't thinking about a year ago when we put together our go bag. But anyway, we'll be promoting that for the sheriff to be speaking next month, and Supervisor Haschek will also be on the line. And I think Brett Blazer, who's the new head of OES, Sheriff Kendall said he thinks he can join as well. So that should be a really interesting presentation from those guys. So
I believe the way evacuation orders can be generated in this county is that the sheriff, Tom Allman, prior sheriff, had delegated down to the incident commander the ability to engage a evacuation process. So I suspect John, who is the incident commander on scene, even though he's putting out spot fires, realized that they had a good chance of controlling that situation. But, you know, that's just me guessing. And debriefing after an incident is a critical thing to be doing, especially early in the season when we're trying out new technology.
Yeah. Yeah, because I did hear, and again, I don't know confirmed, but I did hear that the chief did request the evacuation warning. So for the spring.
I actually did hear that over the radio, but you know, things are dynamic, and once he started to put out the spot fires, he might have changed his mind.
Well, and again, we know that we'd rather be early and say, okay, that was a false one. But, you know, that one was going on a pretty good time. So there were a lot of people concerned, and I think it's worth sending out that notice, even if it's just like the chief did when the skunk fire was happening a year ago and said, you don't have to evacuate, because they were getting people calling saying, do I need to evacuate? So that system can be used for more than just evacuation notices and waiting until the last minute to see if we're going to send it or not. So anyway, but it's great the sheriff is going to talk to us next month.
And one other thing to note on that last fire is think about what you have around your house that can catch fire from your house being on fire. It really can complicate a fire response. There's a lot of combustible propane tanks and you know, vehicles that are close to the structure, as in this case.
Yeah, and that's a really good case in point that we talk about preparing, and what's the most likely thing that's going to happen is you're going to have a fire at your house. It's not going to be paradise fire. It's going to be your kitchen's on fire, your garage is on fire, your car's on fire. I mean, that's the most likely thing to happen. And we all need an evacuation plan for that, because if you're in your house and your kitchen's on fire, it may mean you can't go out the way you would normally go out. You have to go out a window or out a back door. And is your whole family down with that? Have you practiced that and thought about it? You know, because you can look around your house and see the most likely things that happen. Something's going to happen in the garage. Something's going to happen in the kitchen. You know, I mean, and what would you do if you woke up and there's flames? You know, what are you going to do? So all of these things are about just preparing, and it's not a lot of fun, but you know, if you think about it, practice it a little bit, and have your materials, you're going to be more calm. And especially if you practice, if something does happen, I mean, I can tell you, I'm one of the guys that puts in those call alerts in Safety Net, and your adrenaline is pumping, and all I'm doing is sitting in front of a computer, taking the incident information and putting it out to the community. But it's, you know, you're feeling the emergency, and when that happens, it's breathing deep and staying calm. You know, it's a little tougher if you don't already have your plan. If you don't know what it is you're going to do, you're going to likely not do good things. So, you know, this is, you know, I keep, you know, we talk about it, and I don't want to go on about it too much, but please do get your go bags ready and practice. We'll probably be doing what we did last year, was doing evacuation practice. I think after the sheriff speaks next month, we might want to do another drill like we did last year, use Safety Net and say, you know, if you had to evacuate, pretend this is an evacuation notice, and how long is it going to take you to get everything you want to get and get in your car and start driving down the road. And that was a great drill that we did last year, and had a lot of good feedback from people about, you know, how they were better prepared now and realized all the things that were not important and the things that were important. And so practice is what we need to do. So we'll do that later in the summer. Okay, I'm about running out of my stuff. Anybody else want to come in? I know we got to do our raffle. That's what everybody's hanging in for, I'm sure. but we got time for discussion. And since we're all on, anybody else want to chime in for preparations, other thoughts? Mr. Limmer, you got anything to say there? You've always got some good insights, especially communications.
I just want to say that in the board discussions on the budget, that the fire districts were able to retain Prop 172 funding at a base level of $398,000 to be distributed between July and August to all the fire districts of Mendocino County. Also, the new TOT tax that the voters, thank you, many voters, passed with a supermajority, which wasn't required. That tax is also going to begin to be collected on July 1st, that's right now. And there's quite a few campers on the road. People feel safe in their own little environments in their campers, and so the campgrounds are being utilized. So that's of interest. But that's going to raise an estimated over $600,000 in this year. It was estimated at $1 million, and that will also be distributed to the fire districts in Mendocino County. So these are critical needs by your fire districts to keep our volunteers equipped and upgrading our equipment. So every time we put something before you voters, we really do appreciate your support.
And Tony, we've been talking about trying to get more volunteers on the fire department, on the Brooktrails Fire Department. What can you tell us about recruitment, and how could we help to get more people? Because I know they need more people. In fact, I heard the Blue Lake station was refurbished again, and that if we had people up in that direction, they could respond to that station up at the top of the hill.
Well, yes, it's hard to recruit volunteers throughout the county. A lot of the older volunteers had to retire. The state changed the requirements for a physical condition. So a lot of the old guard had to retire out of the fire service. And getting young people to join is very difficult these days, because they need to earn a living to afford their homesteads. We really need volunteers. We are down to a historic low right now in Brooktrails on our volunteers. So for all the parts, now I should say that we have excellent mutual aid agreements with Little Lake, and both Little Lake and Brooktrails are responding to each other's structure fires, Sherwood Road traffic accidents in many cases, and we're backing each other up quite a bit. So we are getting adequate responses, but you know, we need more volunteers. There's no doubt about it. We have room for 25 volunteers, and I think we're down to a critical low right now. So if you know young people, please talk them into community service. The training is great, and they'll learn a skill that's really valuable to the whole community.
What's the maximum age, Tony?
Well, I think once you hit 60, unless you're very physically fit, it begins to drop out. Okay. So, you know, fitness is really the what we need is people who are physically fit and good physical health. And the Cal OSHA requirements really kind of dinged people older than 60 in the sense of, you know, there are physical exams you need to pass once you join a fire department. You know, it's just a doctor's exam to certify that you are so physically fit for that kind of service.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. And John Limmer, did you have something to chime in with?
No, I was transitioning from one room to the other. We got computers on both rooms. And apparently you addressed a comment in my direction, which I missed. My wife said, "Did you hear that?" And I said, "I was transitioning." What was your question?
Well, we were talking about communication, that you know, the going through the various things of the Nixle and the Everbridge and the safety net, and then lookouts and phone trees, and I mean all the things that we just did. You with the ham radio, what kind of experience did you have with amateur radio in that incident?
We really didn't have any amateur radio. You're talking about the incident last Sunday?
Yeah. I mean,
I was monitoring the one channel we would be using, and we didn't have any questions or any activity. So, I mean, there wasn't anything we could respond to at that point, just to keep alert. That's all.
Did you hear anything about an evacuation warning in the radio world there?
No, nothing at all. Okay. The only thing I got was the safety net text message and the phone call, but nothing from the sheriff's office. And certainly Facebook would not be my first choice.
All right, anybody else? I think we're getting close to the raffle time here, unless somebody else wants to chime in. All right, Brian, gonna pick it up here. Who's the magic winner tonight?
All right, we've got a t-shirt, we've got an address sign, and we're gonna have a name. Jillian Bergeron is the winner tonight. Still
wow, I am still here. Wow, thank you so much. I'm here with our whole household. We all are just eating dinner together, and oh, this is so exciting. Thank you. Hey, hi, guys.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, cool.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. Well, we already got the sign, so I'm excited to get a t-shirt, and I'm planning to come into the office this week to get my sign. I already sent you guys an email, so hopefully I'll get to meet some of you in person when I come by next week.
Excellent.
Thank you so much.
Good.
Right on. Okay. Well, I think, you know, and we can stay on and talk if anybody else has other things to say, but, you know, I think we covered topics, and really appreciate the participation from everybody. And I think we're learning how to use Zoom a little better than the first couple of times we did it. So again, please feel free to chime in. We really want to hear questions as well as comments. So feel free to do that. And we'll be back again on August the 13th is our second Thursday. And again, Sheriff Kendall will be joining us, and we'll probably make most of the meeting about evacuation preparation, because he said he's going to have the OES head, Brett Blazer, in as well, and of course Supervisor Haschak. So between COVID and emergency evacuation with the sheriff and the OES guys, that ought to be a pretty full agenda, and we're really lucky to have them participating. So we'll keep up with that. And also Brooktrails residents, please tell your neighbors about Chipper Days. We're going to do the end of July, the last week of July. So that'll be like July 31st is a Friday. Have your materials out, and we will arrange to come by the following week, the first week of August, and chip it up and take it away, or deliver the chips to you if you want them. So please ask for that. Anyone else with some closing thoughts?
This is Doreen, and I just wanted to add my appreciation that Tracy Douglas is back in the position of communication coordinator after being gone for a year. And we're really happy to have her back and what she can add to the organization.
This is Debbie. Thank you. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks
Yeah,
for joining.
thank you guys so much. We really appreciate you and all the work you do. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to call it then. Thanks to everybody, and we will, Jillian will link up with a sign and a t-shirt.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Have a great night.
Okay. All right, everybody. Good night.
Thank you, Keith. Good night, everyone.